Our goal is to unite martial art philosophies, talk about things, talk to experienced martial artists about their training, their background, their history, and how the philosophy of their system works. This is not about one system against the other. This is a way to learn about each and every system, and maybe you can learn something from someone that can influence or enhance your style. That's our purpose. This is not about ego. It's not about who's wrong or who's right. Today I'm with Master Michael Robinson. He fifth Dan in Okinawan GOJU and 10th Dan in American GOJU. Okay? We're at his home here in Manhattan. Very zen place, very nice, very calm. A space that a martial artist created. I really like your place.
Thank you.
I think it's very, peaceful, very peaceful. And I really appreciate you having me come down here and talk with you about stuff. So first, we're going to start, just tell us a little bit about yourself, right?
Yeah, Michael Robinson, studied first started studying karate with a guy by the name of Ronald Carter. Taught in the basement on 118th Street in Manhattan Avenue.
Okay. How old were you then?
Maybe 9 or 10.
Okay.
And I think it was like $10 a month worth of dues. He was only a brown belt. He was a student of Thomas Bodie, right. And it was Japanese GOJU at that time. So at that time I was living on 116th Street between 7th and Lenox, and unbeknown to myself, a guy by the name at that time he was Major Leon Wallace. They call him Great Grandmaster now. He's the founder of the Harlem GOJU Karate. He lived next door, so one day I saw this man walking down the street with a uniform. Back then they used to roll up the uniform and you wear it over your shoulder and walk down the street because not too many people knew what it was anyway.
They'd wrap it on with the belt.
Yeah,
okay.
Holding it with their belt.
Yeah, that's old school.
Yeah, so I saw that and I knew what it was, and I said, "Hey, mister, you practice karate?" And he said, "Well, how do you know?" I said, "You got a karate gi there." He said, "How do you know that?" I said, "'Cause I do karate too."
Right.
And he said, "Really?" He made me show him a kata right there in the street. He said,
really?
He said, "Do a kata."
What did you do?
Just I was only like a green or yellow belt at that time. So I did Taikyoko, basic kata, Japanese GOJU.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you do know karate?" He said, "Where you live?" I said, "I live right there." He said, "Your mother home?" I said, "Yeah." He took me right upstairs right away, and he said, "I'm gonna teach your son karate." My mother said, "How much it costs?" He said, "It's free." He said, "That's a better price than where he's going. You going with him?"
Really?
Yeah.
And where was he teaching at the time?
He had a place called Appletown Dojo on 136th and 7th.
Right.
But most of the time I trained with him up at his house because he lived right next door to me.
Right.
After a while, I was living more at his house than my house.
Right.
I would sleep with my gi on, wake up, start training.
You really got involved.
Yeah, no, I was that way from the beginning.
Right.
From the, I made actually my first gi out of a white T-shirt and a white pajama bottom.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And after I met him, I trained with him for a while, and then he took me and my best friend, a guy by the name of Gregory Dobbins. He took us down to Peter Urban.
Okay.
So he took us down there to learn the katas, and somehow we ended up staying there and practiced for like 4 or 5 years with Urban until he kicked us out.
Why? You caught in trouble?
Yeah, because we started paying attention to the Japanese GOJU, because he was teaching USA GOJU, which he also studied under Yamaguchi Japanese GOJU.
Right.
So we started doing the Japanese Gekisai Daiichi in his dojo.
Right.
And nobody. We left, and both of us, we found Thomas Bodie had the Uptown Dojo. He was teaching Japanese Goju at the time.
Okay.
And soon after we joined there, this guy by the name of Shinoda came.
Right.
From Shurikan, Okinawan GOJU.
Okay.
And Thomas Bodie was making a transition
Right.
over to the Shurikan school of Okinawan GOJU. So we started learning, and we even liked that even better. We said, wow, the original style of Goju is even nicer than the Japanese style.
Right.
And from that time on, different guys came. Guys Shinoda, then came Akira Kawakami, then came Toshiro Tamano. Now when Toshiro Tamano came, him and I, we clicked for some reason. Like, not just student teacher, but sort of like friends. And Mr. Bodie was closing down the school, and Sensei Tamano, Sensei Bodie was closing down the school. Sensei Tamano was opening up a school in Rockefeller Center, so I went with him. And, through him being my teacher and our friendship, that's what opened up my eyes to, like, wanting to go to Okinawa and study and things like that.
So he was originally from Okinawa, or he?
He was from Japan.
Okay.
Taguchi had moved the school from Okinawa into mainland Japan. And
Okay.
Sensei Tamano was one of his students.
Right.
And he was the U.S. representative for the Shurikan at that time.
Okay.
He opened up his own place and stayed there for a while. And then I went to Okinawa and studied there for about 8 years. And
how old were you when you went to Okinawa?
maybe like 25, 20, between around 21. Around
Okay.
21.
And you trained for 8 years in
Yeah.
Okinawa? Okay. What was training like that?
Oh, it was good because, like, I didn't just learn from one teacher. I used to sneak around, like, I would study with Taguchi, and then I went to Meibukan.
Right.
I went to the Jundokan.
Right.
I went to Shimpo Matayoshi for weaponry.
Right.
And just training. Sometimes I couldn't even make it in my place. I was so tired.
Right.
I mean, it was only like 2 little steps I had to walk up. And then basically that's where someone introduced me to him. Actually, I knew him from here before I went to Okinawa.
And what's his name?
His name is Sokin Sakayama.
And that is him.
That's him right there.
Okay. Sokin Sakayama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody calls him Oshosan.
Okay.
That means priest.
Right.
He came here before I went to Okinawa, and right around the corner from where I live at now, which we're not going to say.
Right.
He was a friend to the teacher, a guy by the name of Zenko Heshiki. They both went to the same monastery.
Right.
And he came there and he demonstrated Sanchin.
Right.
And he also had sitting Zen lessons. Also, he did it at Shurikan. Every Friday was overnight, where you sit from 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning.
Right.
Meditation.
Right.
And
Photo of his teacher, older. This was in the U.S.?
no, that was in Okinawa.
Okay, in Okinawa. So this is the photo he's referring to, and just when he's pointing over that.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea.
Because I forget that you can't see it unless you brought it over here. So anyway, when he came here, I went to all of his meditation classes. He didn't teach karate; he just taught meditation and the techniques of Zen. The guy around the corner, his name was Zenko Heshiki. He was a Shonryu practitioner, but they were classmates in the monastery. They're coming up as monks.
Right.
So when I decided to go to Okinawa, which I should have said this at first, Zenko Hishiki Sensei wrote me a letter introduction to go study with him.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went to Okinawa on an introduction letter?
Yeah.
Very
Well,
powerful.
Zenko Hishiki used to call me the historian.
Really?
Because I had a book, I had pictures from 1901 all the way to 1953, the whole history of the Choji Miyagi, the founder, Goju. I had photos. At that time, nobody had the photos I had. Some of them were out, but I had some photos.
Mm-hmm.
I went to his monastery, and one of his students came out, and I gave him a letter of introduction.
Right.
And then they allowed me to come in, and I just started training as a novice monk.
All right.
Nothing to do with karate. No, karate wasn't mentioned.
All right.
And then I would go other places and practice karate. Like I went to the not the Shurikan, the Jundukan, and the Meibukan. At that time, I thought, wow, all Okinawan Goju was good, and it is in a way. There's no wrong way to do it. Some people who have little knowledge of Goju, you see you doing the technique, they say, "Oh, that's not right."
Right.
There's no wrong way. There's no wrong way. If it's Okinawan Goju, it's wrong ways to execute a technique.
Right.
But that goes for all, no matter what martial art you practice.
Right.
In China, they had a saying, there's only one way to train the fist. So either you do it the right way or the wrong way.
Right.
If your body's not aligned, if your body's not relaxed at certain points, if your breathing is not correct at certain points of impact, or while you're doing defensive moves, this is what can be wrong. Because if your body's not in the right place,
right.
As you know, you can get hurt. You can hurt yourself,
right.
and you will lose energy and strength.
Right.
A lot of guys do a lot of wasted movements, and breathing like they're crazy, and
right.
that's all waste of movement, waste of time. And it's not saying anything bad about whatever style it is that does that.
Yeah, well, I understand.
It's just the facts. It's just facts. You can do something that'll improve your health and improve your strength, and you could do something that will deplete your health and strength.
Right.
And that's with anything. If you lift weights the wrong way, it could be detrimental to your body and to your health.
Right.
So, as it is with the martial arts, it's a right way and a wrong way to do it, no matter what style you practice.
Right. So, you're a vast of knowledge, right? Training for many, many years, since you're 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Traveled to Okinawa, trained in Japanese, Okinawan, and American Goju.
Yeah.
Right? So, within your experience, within your years, you also practice meditation, Zen meditation, and so on. How do the three philosophies differ between all three?
What, like karate?
The Japanese approach to the philosophical or mental training, and the Okinawan as opposed to the American.
Well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer, because it will.
From your own perspective.
Yeah. No, it's not that I can't answer it.
Right.
It's just difficult to answer it without putting somebody down.
Yeah, well, we are not about putting anything.
No, I'm saying that's why it's difficult to answer. So the thing is that the Japanese and the Okinawan, so far as the metaphysical part or the mental aspects of it, is just about the same.
Right.
The Japanese are more militaristic,
right,
with their way of thinking.
Right.
The Okinawans are more simplistic and more closely related to Zen. Like I told you before, they have the saying in Okinawa, Ken Zen Ichi Nyo.
Right.
And that means that the fist and the mind are inseparable.
Right.
Or literal translation means the fist and Zen are inseparable.
Right.
For instance, you go into a Japanese dojo in Japan, most of them go, "Us!
Right.
Us!" In Okinawa, that's disrespectful.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Because it's like saying, "Hey."
Oh.
Like, hey. You go in there, you could say, "Onegaishimasu." That means, please help me, please teach me.
Oh, okay.
And the training is not so regimented as it is in mainland Japan.
Okay.
The American Goju is also like Japanese Goju. You have the class structure and but it's a lot different from you. Not a lot different. It's a little bit different from the Japanese.
Right.
And it's a lot different from the Okinawan.
Oh, okay.
And now the Japanese Goju on the Gosei Yamaguchi is more like the Okinawan Goju because he had a long relationship with a teacher from Okinawa, Yagi Meitoku Sensei.
Right.
Was training Yamaguchi's son, and his katas are even more like the Okinawan ones.
And what about the training philosophies? Is there a distinct difference between the approach to the physical aspect of training?
Well, no, not really. I think the Japanese and the Americans train just as hard, but in different ways.
Right.
Like I said, once again, Japanese is closer.
Right.
When you go into a school in Okinawa, as most schools in China too, you see a symbol, nin, like the first character for ninja.
Right.
Nin. That word means perseverance.
Right.
Endurance, to keep going.
Right.
And
so in Chinese, we're young, like tolerance.
Yeah,
young.
exactly.
Right.
It's like the ninja sign, like that.
Yeah.
With the heart underneath it.
Right.
The sword with the heart underneath.
Yeah. So the Chinese characters, one of them is okay.
Yeah. And you see that in every school in Okinawa.
Really?
Yeah. So what that means is perseverance. You never give up.
Right.
Never give up. Just keep training. And it might, in some cases, it's not as, like I said, it's not as wow, I'm looking for the word. It's not as militaristic as the Japanese karate.
Okay.
They have the ceremony, opening ceremony, warm-up exercises, and then the commencement of class, as the Japanese do. But some days you can just go into class and the teacher just look at you.
Right.
No formal training whatsoever. And in some schools it's like that all the time.
Right.
Just like the Chinese. Chinese Kung Fu, you go into school, your teacher's there, you bow to him, you show him respect, and then you go train, and then he might come by and look at you.
Well, those are more traditional schools, right? Like I'm trained in Dragon in Chinatown. It was a very traditional school. I remember the first time I joined, that my teacher, Master Yip, he was just sitting on the side. I didn't even know he was the teacher. He was smoking a cigarette while all the other students were working.
Yeah.
And when I signed up, he got up, he showed me a few stuff, and then he left.
Yeah.
And he went back and sat down.
That's how they do.
Yeah.
That's how they do. Yeah.
There was no constant coaching or constant school. It was totally up to you.
Or everybody get in line and punch.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, and then later on he would whole class together, but then you always had this amount of time to train on your own and to develop on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he would always say to me that it was up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Right? So I understand what you're saying about that.
Yeah. In Okinawa, that's the way it is. You go in, you train, and sometimes the teacher will look at you, and sometimes he won't. He'll go look at somebody else, and sometimes we all train together,
Right.
just like what you were saying. So the Okinawan and the Chinese are very close the way their training sessions go.
Right.
In Okinawa, there was a famous Chinese family called the 36 Families.
Okay.
And through the 36 families, that's one of the ways they believe that the Kung Fu came into Okinawa.
Oh,
It's
okay.
through the 36 families. Yeah.
Oh.
Or shipwrecked pirates or from China.
Yeah.
But one thing for sure, that during the Tang Dynasty,
Right.
that's when the most information of martial arts came into Okinawa.
Isn't there like a great documentary, Needle Through Brick?
Yeah.
We're also going to cover film on some of this because there are some really strong martial art documentaries out there.
Yeah.
And I bet you this man here knows a lot of them. So
Yeah.
we're just going to talk a little bit about Needle Through Brick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically a documentary about Chinese martial arts in Okinawa.
No, that's about Chinese martial arts in places like Malaysia, Vietnam,
Okay.
Singapore.
Right.
But those are also very important places for Okinawan karate too,
Right.
because first of all, a lot of Okinawan masters claim to have studied in China.
Right.
Went to China, found a teacher, and started studying, which that's not too possible. That's not really possible due to the way that the Okinawans were.
Right.
I mean, the Chinese were.
Right.
You had to be a family member.
Yeah.
You had to be recommended
Right.
by a family member, or like in some cases they wouldn't even teach some of their own family members.
Right.
So just imagine a foreigner going to China,
Yeah.
asking an Okinawan person, asking a Chinese person to teach them
Right.
Kung Fu. But now here's where Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines comes into play.
Right.
During the Boxers' Rebellion, a lot of Kung Fu masters moved out of China, left China, and moved into places like Singapore,
Right.
Malaysia, Philippines.
So this is now a little history on Goju, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna go right.
Philippines, and for instance, the style 5 ancestry fist,
Right.
very popular in the Philippines, very popular in Malaysia. So what the point that I'm coming to is that a lot of one more thing I like to say. So when the Kung Fu masters left and went to these different countries,
Right.
a lot of them didn't have any other skills but Kung Fu, so they started teaching Kung Fu as a profession.
Oh, okay.
So they would accept anybody who could pay.
Right.
So then you go back to Okinawa. A lot of Okinawan masters probably went to Singapore,
Right.
Malaysia, because the Chinese probably wouldn't teach them in China.
Right. Right.
Went to Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and learned Kung Fu there,
Right.
because all you had to do is pay a little bit, pay
Yeah.
some money, and they would teach you.
Right.
Whereas you go to China, even though there was a family, a Chinese family that lived in Okinawa named Kojos. Now, they had a school in Fujian, China, where Okinawans would go there to learn Chinese boxing.
Right.
And they had a school in Okinawa. Now, this could be another place where the Okinawans went to learn, and they say, look, we went to China
Right.
and learned. But it was more or less like the Kojo family was the ones who was in charge of that, and they might have like guest teachers
Right.
and things like that, and you can learn a little bit of Bagua, Xinyi, Tai Chi,
Right.
maybe Dragon Style Kung Fu, maybe Lohan Fist,
Right.
maybe Tiger Claw, maybe Dragon Style. You know, but it wasn't a thing where you. It was more like seminars,
Right.
more like seminars. Maybe like a 1 month or 2 month seminar,
Yeah.
and then the Kojo family had their own particular style that they
Right.
would teach. But I think that a lot of Okinawan masters went either there in Fujian to learn from the Kojo family,
Yeah.
or they went to Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, and paid for the lessons. And then when they came back, say, "Oh, we went to China and learned."
Okay. So, in your training and development, what was the most difficult thing that you experienced that you think you had to overcome?
Laziness, American laziness,
American laziness.
American laziness.
In what sense?
Like, you know, every day,
Yeah.
you know, training, everyday training.
Right.
And, you know, days, I mean, like, when I went to Okinawa, it was different. You know, you trained every day.
Mhm.
And even if you trained by yourself in the dojo,
Yeah.
somebody's watching you.
Right.
You know, hey, you know what? Step it up. You're not trying hard enough.
Right.
You know,
So,
do this.
how did you get over that? In order to
By doing it and mentally just tuning myself in. You know,
Right.
mentally tuning myself into their way of thinking. You know,
Mhm. Oh, okay.
and you know, after a while, anything you do, if you like it, you'll get used to it.
Right. What kind of like I know a lot of martial artists meditate. How important do you think meditation is to the development of a martial artist?
I think it's the most important
In what sense?
in the sense that we have a body. All as if we're humans, we have bodies,
Right.
right?
Right.
Anybody can throw a punch, throw a kick, and things like that.
Right. We're physical beings.
Yeah, we're
physical stuff comes easy.
Yeah, but to control the mind is
Yeah.
very difficult.
Right.
For instance, when you do meditation, right?
Right.
You want to clear the mind of all thoughts, which is a very difficult thing to do. More difficult than doing 100,000 or more than doing any amount of push-ups that you can do.
Right. Right.
Is to keep the mind calm.
Because the monkey mind. Is
Yeah,
always there.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we tend to, especially here in the West, we tend to rely more on the physical than the mental.
Right. Yes.
But even in combat,
Mm-hmm.
if your mind is scattered in 100 different places,
Right.
you're gonna be defeated. You're gonna be defeated.
Right.
But if your mind is calm
Mm-hmm.
and empty of all thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
then you could see everything.
Right.
You could see everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a mirror, for instance. If you really look, what's in the mirror? What's in the mirror?
Well, a mirror shows a reflection of your physical self.
Yeah.
Right.
But what's actually in a mirror?
There's nothing in a mirror.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A mirror reflects the things that is around.
Around it, right. So a mirror is empty.
A mirror is empty.
Right.
And that's how the mind should be. When the mind is empty, it reflects all things.
Right.
When it's full, you can't see anything. You might as well be blind.
Right.
And the thing about like human nature and things like that, and that's why when you said that we're not here to compare styles or to put one style is better than the other.
We're here for a bonding. That's why
Yeah.
it's kindredfist, right?
Yeah.
So a bonding between different views and ideas, not a competition.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what it's all about, is to bring the world together instead of so many things that are bringing the world apart already.
Right.
So many things, different things that are going on in the world, and different aspects in life, and the minds of people, and you know, the color
Right.
barriers and the racial barriers. And it's time for people to learn how to come together, you know, before everything goes apart.
Right. And as a martial artist, playing a role in that becomes very important.
It's important. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's very
Because
important.
your mind, the way you approach things, the way you deal with individuals, as a martial artist, you're supposed to be above certain things.
Yeah.
Right? That's what your training and your practice is supposed to help you
Compassion.
understand. Right.
Compassion.
Yeah. First, compassion first.
Yes. Compassion.
I want to talk about katas. We do forms in Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say that forms or katas are useless because of the it's just forms and it's katas.
Yeah.
My view has always been, I trained a great deal extensively with my teacher before he passed, and we did a lot of this, talking after training.
Mm-hmm.
After sweating and grunting and doing the physical stuff, we would sit and talk for hours about the philosophy and the history and things like that. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So my view is that the form is not in the amount of movements that you do, but in the individual techniques, right? You learn the form of that technique to make it effective.
Every movement is a form. Every
Right.
movement, every movement. When you do like this, that's a form.
Right.
When you strike, that's a form.
Right.
The thing is, what people don't understand. You see people, for instance, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee says it's a classical mess. The forms are useless.
Right.
You know, but he wouldn't have realized what he did if not through his forms.
Right.
You know,
Right.
a form is the forms are to eventually have freedom or liberation of movements.
Mm.
You practice the forms, okay, they're all in a set pattern, they're all in a set way.
Forms or katas.
Yeah, forms or
Karate.
kata, the same.
Yeah.
You move this way, you move that way. Kung Fu is more straight, the way they move. Sometimes they move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. You do these movements,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually you start seeing things.
Right.
And then with the mental aspect in the martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
then what they say, your eyes start to open, your real eyes start to open, and you
Right.
start to see.
Okay. Yeah.
And for instance, a spiral, circle, everything in the universe
Right.
has that. And then you
Constant. Yeah.
exactly. And then when you see that, and then you think, you see this movement, you do this movement, that movement, you say, wow, that makes sense. And then you could see it in everything.
Right, but that's a discovery that you make yourself.
That you
through
make
training,
yourself
through constant
through
practice.
training in the forms.
Right,
That's why the form is very important.
right, but not just training the forms on a physical aspect, but going deeper into the mental.
Oh yeah, no, because
philosophical aspect.
exactly, it's the form consists of physical
Mm-hmm.
training, which is a movement,
Right,
mental training, which is your state of mind,
right.
and spiritual training, which goes beyond the state of mind, which goes into the subconscious and the super subconscious mind.
Right,
When you reach a point in the form when you could say, okay, I have freedom of movement.
right,
Like Bruce Lee says, that was a money-making scheme.
mm-hmm.
Because, he had to learn the forms in order to reach that point that he claimed that he had.
Right,
Who knows if he really had it,
Right.
Because he was studying boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, karate,
right,
aikido. If you practice one art and you practice it correctly, you don't need anything else.
right.
Everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
All of your karate, your judo, your aikido, your jiu-jitsu, your wrestling, everything is there. Because then when your eyes are open, you can see,
Right.
You can see, you say, wow, you know what? I could look at people doing Tai Chi, I could look at people doing Kung Fu,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's like crane style or Lohan fist.
Right,
And I could see the movements. I said, oh, I can do it. I know that. I can, I understand the movements right away. it's like, that's why they say it's only one way to train a fist. Like
Right.
dragon style, for instance, you do your movements. You have to move the kwa
Yes.
in a certain way. In the Japanese, they call that koshi,
Right.
the waist.
Yeah.
And the waist movements are in coordination with the hand movements.
Right.
You know, so
Move
the waist,
before you move the hands.
the waist moves the hands.
Right.
And you ask 99% of karate guys, they won't understand that little aspect of
Right.
it. And once you understand that aspect, you're halfway there.
Right.
You know, to having freedom of movements.
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, the waist moves the hand, so now instead of just doing like this, like if the guy punches you, instead
Right.
of doing like this,
Yeah.
you know, to do like that,
Right.
and you have
Right.
a better
Right.
reaction,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that transfers from your physical body and your mental state of mind
Mm-hmm.
into reality.
Right.
You know, it's the way you move comes into play,
Right.
and learning how to move the waist in coordination with the upper and the lower body.
Yeah.
That's what it's basically all about.
Right.
You know, because the waist or the kwa or the koshi,
Yeah.
that's the center of the gravity of the human body.
Right.
When you learn how to move that correctly, then you're halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's little intricate movements
Mm-hmm.
that you, especially in Kung Fu,
Right.
little
Yeah.
intricate movements that you do with the hand
Yeah.
that also have to be in coordination with the waist.
Yeah.
But not only
I
the,
know too much about Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Don't talk anymore about Kung Fu.
Not
talk
only-
about Okinawan Karate.
not only the internal, I mean, not even speaking about the internal part.
Right. Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
Right.
So now going back to Goju,
Yeah.
that's why it's called Goju. Goju means hard and soft, but not only hard and soft,
Right.
it means substantial, insubstantial, internal, external. You know, it's and the movement is very the movements of Goju are much more stagnant, or much more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, like that. But within those movements,
Mm-hmm.
you have what you call intermediate movements that are not seen,
That are
really.
not seen, right.
That you cannot see in the beginning.
Right. So it takes time to understand and release those.
To see them, yeah.
So, and is it true that in the higher level of Goju is where you begin to learn the softness, like this?
Well,
brain
you learn it.
forms?
You learn it. You learn it all the way through, but you don't understand it until after you've been practicing so many years.
Right.
For instance, you know, the basic forms of Goju is Sanchin.
Right.
They also have Sanchin in China. You know, it came from China.
Yeah.
Sanchin in Goju is referred to as the basic form of hard.
That was one of my questions. I want to talk about Sanchin. Tell me about Sanchin.
Okay, well, Sanchin is the basic form of hard.
Right.
What does that mean? Sanchin builds up the muscles in the body, the builds up the muscles, the posture,
Right.
breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You learn how to, excuse me, just get a drink. You learn how to breathe
Yeah.
using your lower abdominal area.
Right.
You learn how to align the body with the fist. First of all, Sanchin, let's go the word Sanchin. Means the same thing as it does in Chinese or as it does in Japanese.
Right.
It means three battles.
3 battles.
Three
Sanchin,
battles. I like to say 3 conflicts.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, because battle, war, conflict, same thing.
Right.
3 conflicts. For the Goju practitioners, it means uniting the lower, the middle, and the upper parts of the body,
Okay. Creating balance.
creating balance. and to strengthen those, the lower, the middle, and the upper parts of the body.
Right.
Internally, they say mind, body, spirit.
Right.
What is spirit? You know, in Chinese philosophy,
Right.
you have what they call the Qing,
Mm-hmm.
which is the essence,
Mm-hmm.
the Qi, which is the energy, and the
Right.
Shin, which is the spirit.
Right.
Same thing with Sanchin. But people, most Goju practitioners don't understand that.
Right.
And they don't understand how to they only know how to nurture and develop maybe the physical part.
The physical aspect of it.
But
Okay.
the essence, the
Mhm.
chi or the ki, and the shin or the spirit,
Right.
they don't know how to strengthen those.
Right.
You know, they some do, but most don't.
Right.
Most people don't. So this is the nature of Sanchin, uniting or strengthening or uniting the lower, the middle, and the upper part, strengthening the three treasures, what is called in Chinese,
Right. Mm-hmm.
the essence, the energy, and the spirit.
Yeah.
So that's the nature of Sanchin.
So,
Now, the reason why it's basic form of heart, because all of your hard blocks come from here. Even your soft blocks come from Sanchin. So low block, middle block, head block, all from here. So you judge the distance. Okay, so when you begin Sanchin, you open.
where's your focus?
Pull the hands up, pull the head up. Concentrate your energy in the Tanden, in Chinese Tantien, or your navel point, 3 inches below your navel. Then you breathe in and out. Then you open 2 middle blocks. Inhalation. Also, relax your body. Breathe in.
And that was Sanchin.
Sanchin.
That is the
Basic
power
form of heart.
So at what level do you learn Sanchin?
In the old days, that was the first kata you learned.
Oh.
Nowadays, green belt, brown belt, but it should be the first kata you learn.
Okay.
Should be.
So it helps bring focus for the mind and
For
the
instance,
body.
you do this, right? It's
Yeah.
the basic form of heart. So you're doing the middle block.
Mhm.
The fist is the same level as your shoulder, could be a little bit higher.
Mhm.
The elbow is one of your own fists away from your body. Everything is measurement, right?
Mhm.
That's the nature of Sanchin. Now, the next kata
Mhm.
is Tencho.
Okay.
Tencho means rotating palms.
Right.
Tencho develops the sinew and the tendons.
Tendons,
The
right.
tendons. Tencho develops a tendon. Within Tencho, you have all of the circular movements that you need to have in practicing the more advanced Goju forms.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's called the basic form of soft.
Right.
Because now, middle block, soft block, just open a hand. It's the same as the hard middle block, and turn it over. That's right. Head block, wrist, middle block. Right? Same. One fist away from your body, hand in line with your shoulder. For this block, urakake-uki, it could be a little bit lower than your shoulder. Low block, open hand. So it's the same measurements as you do the hard blocks. Soft.
Right.
Because, when you do open hand techniques, that's considered soft.
Soft. Right.
But people don't understand that.
Right.
See, because you could have power in the hand, but the rest of the body should be
Needs
relaxed.
to be relaxed. Yes.
Yeah, and just strengthen the hand.
Right.
That's internal. That's what softness is. You know, it's and the people they open their hand, but still the whole body is stiff.
Right.
The shoulders, the muscles, the muscles, but that's not how you drink. That's not how you obtain true strength and true energy.
Right.
It's different factors that are involved in that. That going back to once again, there's only one way to train the fist.
Right.
So that's the nature of Sanchin and Tencho.
Right.
And Tencho was developed by Choji Miyagi from
Okay.
Sanchin by studying the 6G hands.
The 6G hands.
The 6G hands, yeah, that's was in the book of Bubishi.
Okay.
The 6G hands or the six, you could say 6 energy hands, it's called, but in White Crane Kung Fu you could see it very clearly.
Right.
You can if it's the Fujianese White Crane.
So just real quick, the Bubishi is considered the karate Bible.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what they
It
say.
has
yeah.
everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 6G hands is how Choji Miyagi studied the 6G hands and created Tencho.
Right.
So Tencho is a rather new kata
Yeah.
compared to most of the Goju katas are fairly maybe 200, maybe 150 years old, not that old.
Wow.
And nobody really knows exactly where some of them came from.
So in your training, for all the training that you've done, how has it influenced you as an individual? How has it developed your mental state?
Well, the training has helped me a lot. I mean, it's made me a different person.
Right.
You know, it's like I have reverence for all things.
Right.
I love all people,
Mhm.
you know, until they prove otherwise.
Right.
I love all people until they become antagonistic.
Right.
You know, even if the person doesn't like me, I still like them.
Right.
You know, because if a person doesn't like you, you don't have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
But in this world, I think you have to be careful
Yeah.
who you deal with at times, you know, because you could have a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right. Right. So you find that you're a little more tolerant.
Yeah, a lot tolerant. People take kindness for weakness, you know,
Yeah.
in this world. But
Right.
that's okay. They could think what they want of me. I'm going to be who I am,
Right.
you know,
Right.
no matter
Yeah.
what.
So okay. So all these years you've trained, you've done the circuit, you've competed,
Yeah.
right? And you've been teaching and so on. How would you, or how do you think the development of a student change from your time till this time?
Well,
Like what's different, or the approach of the teaching, or I find like maybe there's not enough mental aspect of the training. Maybe there's too much emphasis on, because now martial art is considered a sport,
yeah.
right? And a lot of people approach sport as something they do for a certain amount of time and then they quit. They can't do it anymore. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that a lot of there's a lot of physicality that's required with the sport aspect of martial arts, right? But once a lot of people, not everyone, some people eventually find their way into the treating martial art as a lifestyle,
Yeah.
a way of life.
Yeah.
But most people would just use it for the time that they can compete and do what they do. And then I hear people say, "Oh, I'm too old for that," or "I don't do that anymore." So,
Yeah. That's because they only go in for one aspect of it.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with tournaments and competition, you know, especially the way they do it now is much safer
Right.
than it was back in the old days. As you know, in China, they used to have
Yeah,
death
yeah.
matches, you know.
How is it for you coming up competition?
It's okay. Different from today. We didn't wear the protective foot guards and the hand guards and the head guards.
Yeah.
You know, we just fought, and it was a little bit more animalistic, you know, because you got guys that like headhunters, you know,
Right.
and things like that. And I mean, that's what I mean. It has evolved to a better place now, you know.
Yeah.
The sports karate
Right.
has evolved to a better place, especially in like even in New York, but in Europe it's even more so. You know, as in Japan, it's but I think the Europeans, or even like they took sports karate to another level.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have like the open tournaments. I mean, they do, but it's more uniformed. It's more structured
Right.
than the tournaments that they have here.
Right.
Um,
They did a lot of fighting in Okinawa in your training?
Not really. No.
No?
They emphasize the forms more.
Okay.
Conditioning,
Right.
exercise, conditioning.
Right.
You know, you have what they call bunkai,
Yeah.
or prearranged fighting,
Right.
and then for the katas you have like 2-man forms.
Okay.
Like the Kung Fu has 2-man
Yeah,
forms.
yeah, we have 2-man forms.
The Goju Karate and the Shuriken also has 2-man forms
Right, yeah.
for every kata. Some people think, okay, there's no bunkai for Kurunfa or Super Empe, but there is.
Right.
There's 2-man forms for those katas also. So you learn how to move, you learn what the techniques are for by practicing with another person,
Right.
you know.
What's the difference between freehand training and weapons training?
Well, the weapons are an extension of your hand training,
Right.
you know, so there's not much difference. It's just an extension of your empty hand art, the
Okay.
weapons.
Okay. What weapons did you train in Okinawa?
Sai, bow, tunfa, nunchaku, the yaku, fisherman's oar.
Yeah.
I didn't like nunchaku because you always bang up. Look how fat my elbow is.
And look at his fist. Show your fist to the camera. Look at these fists, man. They are like, iron. Put your fingers out. Look at his fingers. He's got like knobs on his fingers. I mean, that's
Yeah,
like-
because there's many weapons in karate, and I've even heard people say, "Oh, you can't use your fingers in a fight. You can't use your one knuckle thing in a strike. Those are weapons. You got to train them.
Right.
You have to train them,
Yeah.
just like you do everything else.
Right.
You even should be able to kick with your toes.
Yeah.
And you have to train in them so that you won't be injured.
Right.
So when they say your fingers are like spears,
Yeah.
and your fists are like hammers.
And
And
do you still train today?
yeah, I still train. I don't train as extensively as I did, but I do a lot of stretching.
Right.
I do a lot of strength exercise.
Right.
You got to keep. As you grow older, it's more important to keep your body limber
Right.
and loose than
Yeah.
strong.
Right. And how old are you, Michael?
76.
76.
Yeah.
Wow. Still going. 76 years old.
Your girlfriend's 26.
You go to jail by yourself.
That's not jail.
Your girlfriend's 26. So, how has your training changed? Or your approach to training? How has it changed?
It's more, like I said, it's more internal.
Right.
More, I concentrate more on flexibility than I do physical strength.
Right.
Because if you notice something, right?
Yeah.
A rubber band, very flexible. You
Yeah.
stretch it, but if I hit you with it, it's going to hurt, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's what you want. You want to have that snapback strength, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like,
Right.
because that rubber band,
Mm-hmm.
when it's going from point A before it hits you, it's
Right.
very loose.
Right.
Then when it pop, ow, it stings, right?
Yeah.
And that's how a strike should be,
So, is it more to train the ligaments or the muscles, or you train both for the flexibility?
In the beginning, it's muscles.
Yeah.
as you advance, you reach the ligaments.
Right.
That's what the Yi Jit Jing is for. The muscle tendon changes.
Muscle tendon changes, right?
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Very important.
Right.
You know. And I mean, like people say, well, he does karate. What is he doing? Muscle tendon. That's all part of it. When the Bodhidharma went to China,
Right.
he taught. That's what he taught in the Shaolin Temple. He taught Yi Jit Jing and the Sui Jit Jing, the muscle tendon changes and the bone washing exercises.
Right.
For instance, that's what Sanchin is. Sanchin, you clean the bones also, you know, through the breathing. And like I said, in the beginning, I didn't know those things.
Right.
It was later on in life, you know, just actually within the last maybe 10 years of my training, that's when I realized I started to realize those things and starting to put them into application, internalize them.
Right.
You know, internalize them.
Mm-hmm. So, in your training, your development, things like that, if you were to like send a message to like from beginners, people who are struggling, people who are trying to make the decision whether or not they can really approach martial art as a way of life, or you know, how would you advise them? What would you say to them?
I would say, how's that old cliche go? To thy own self be true.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
To thine own self be true.
Yeah. And if you love martial arts, try to find a good teacher. Try to find somebody who knows it, you know, who won't hurt you, but who will increasingly make you stronger.
Right.
You know, in the beginning, it's all physical. It's physical,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then in the end, it becomes more, as you progress, it becomes more and more internal.
Right.
You have to find a teacher who knows both the yin and the yang.
Right.
You know, who knows the internal and the external, who can bring you from point A to point Z.
Right.
You know, because you get some teachers and they just block, punch, kick, lift weights, do this, do that.
Yeah.
And then on the inside, your body's going crazy.
Right.
That's why you see a lot of these martial artists today, they die young, you know, because they know certain aspects of it, but when it reaches a certain point,
Right.
it stays the same. And what happens to stagnant water? What happens to anything that becomes stagnant? It
Right.
dies.
It dies. Yeah. How do you begin to train the mind? How do you begin to develop the martial mind?
Well, just like I said before, you have to learn how to calm the mind. You have to learn how to you have to learn how to empty it. You have to learn how to clear your mind of thoughts. You're never going to get rid of them all.
Right.
Never going to get rid of all your thoughts. But it's just like if you put sand in a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
When you stir the water up, the sand is all over the place.
Right.
But once the water stills, the sand falls down to the bottom. And that's the nature of the mind. You know, you have to learn how to settle the thoughts to the bottom of the glass.
In your training, in your development, your growth throughout the years, who's been the most positive influence?
Oshosan.
Okay.
Yeah.
In what regard?
In regards to the mental aspect.
Okay.
In regard to the mental aspect, because like the saying goes, ken zen ichin yo. The mind and the karate and the mind are inseparable.
Right.
You know, you can't have one without the other.
So he's influenced you.
Yeah, very, very much so. But other people have also, you know, I mean, like talking to you, I learned a little bit of dragon style from you. And
he tried, but it was too tough. He quit.
Yeah, okay. No, I didn't. I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna do it again, but it's just time factor and situations. Let me put it that way. Situations.
What was the most one of the most amazing things you have witnessed through your training?
Wow.
Whether it's for yourself or for somebody else, something you've seen, something, you know.
Well, okay, so since we're talking about me, I'll say for me,
Okay.
just the different transitions, you know, that there's different stages of training,
Okay.
and the different way, in the different ways that my body has changed. You know, from the time it's just like a baby, you know, has to crawl before it walks.
Right.
It's the same thing with martial arts. And then once it walks, it can run. He can run, and he can run faster. Like, what's his name? Michael Boats?
Yeah.
Do it like that.
Huh.
He can run very fast, but he couldn't always run very fast. He probably couldn't run very fast until he was able to clear his mind and relax.
Right. In training, does the mind influence the body, or does the body influence the mind more?
Well, the mind influences the body. They have a saying in China also that surely the mind is a suitable helper, because they say that the yi, which is the mind, influences the chi. You know,
Right.
the mind moves the chi.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever the mind is, so is the chi.
Right.
So yeah, the mind. It's always mind first.
Right.
But in the beginning, it's physical.
Right.
You know, in the beginning, it's physical, and then you know you train hard, and then you start to see things.
So you need the physical training in order to develop the mental mind, and then use the mind
It always,
to generate.
because physically, if in the beginning, it's very hard.
Right.
You know, it's very hard to practice horse stance. It's very hard to practice, you know, the basic Sanchin stance or the cat stance.
Right.
Those things are not easy. They're difficult.
Right.
But once you get them, then it becomes easy. Then you go to the next level, you know. And then after that, you go to the next level.
Right.
But first, it starts with physical. Because that's what it is. That's what it starts out as. You know, the root, if the tree had no roots, then the leaves are not going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
The tree is not going to grow. So you start from the ground up. A lot of teachers, you know, they rely on the arms, the strength, you know, to build up big chests and big muscles. And that's not what it's all about.
Right. How would you, like, if I knew nothing about martial arts and you wanted to influence me to maybe adapt to a martial art as a way of life, how would you begin to do that?
Well, I don't think you do that. The person has to decide on their own. You know, you teach them, you guide them the best that you can,
Right.
and they learn it through your character, through the character of the teacher. That's why if a teacher has a bad character, most of the time the student is bad. You know, so they learn it just like children learn from their parents. It's
Right.
the same thing. I remember with Oshosan, when he was here, two of General Ernst's students came to the overnight sitting Zen.
Right.
So we're sitting Zen, and it starts at 6 p.m.
Right.
So around 8 o'clock, two of General Ernst's students get up and walk out. And Osho-san stopped him. And no, he didn't stop him. He let him go. And then Joe Orange came to one of the classes and he asked him to leave. Because he said a student is only a reflection of their teacher. So, you know, it's like I said, perseverance.
Right.
You know,
This is what Kindred Fist is trying to do, is to speak to people like Michael here and have great dialogue about martial arts, about the development of the individual as a martial artist, and without having any kind of ego or bad say about anything or anyone else. We want to create a platform where anybody from any style, anywhere, can get on and learn something, no matter if they're a beginning student or they're a master of a different style.
No matter what you do in life, it's always starts with you. You know, It always starts with you. You want happiness, you gotta make it happen. You want fame, you gotta make it happen. You want happiness. All of those things come from the inside of you. You know, and everything in your life that you want is good. It always comes from the inside of you. So if you want, you know, whatever you want, you got to think first of yourself. You know, Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But do you love yourself? You see, a lot of people don't have self-love because they don't know what love is.
Michael, Sensei,
Yeah.
I would love to thank you for your time,
You're welcome.
efforts and everything, and helping us to really build something meaningful for the martial art world.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
No worries.